The world is falling apart. We find ourselves at a proxy war with Russia that could turn into World War III at any given day. We witness severe disruptions of critical infrastructure. Thousands of US residents are left without electricity and, in some cases, drinking water. Western European countries prepare for power outages and loss of heating. Nothing of this has to do with cyber. Isn't that a surprise? All the doomsday scenarios that cybersecurity experts have warned us about day in, day out are coming together, yet not a single one is caused by cyber. Maybe the biggest surprise is that in the war that is presently ongoing in Ukraine, no serious cyber attacks on critical infrastructure have been reported. The only unconventional weapon system that seems to have made an impact is killer drones of Iranian heritage. Iran? Wasn't Iran hyped up for their offensive cyber capabilities? But when push came to shove, they didn't send their hackers. They sent their drone operators. And as for the power outages and breakdowns of critical infrastructure that we have seen and are about to see, they weren't caused by cyber either. Instead, Hurricane Ian did the job in Florida, and political decision makers in Europe are responsible for the most severe energy crisis the continent is facing after World War II. So, what happened to cyber? The last real cyber-physical attack with sizable damage was 7 years ago in Ukraine. However, we don't see proud signs like X years without serious cyber-physical attacks on corporate websites. Instead, any ICS security vendor will tell you that we live in a world of continuous cyber attacks and that the threats are constantly rising, even though the impact is nowhere to be seen. At an ICS security conference earlier this year, a speaker shared that in her perception, ICS security experts can be compared to London residents during the bombing raids of World War II.
London's World War II and the aftermath is our critical infrastructure today. While they stayed up night wondering if bombs were hitting their homes, their businesses, and perhaps result in death, that's us at night as OT practitioners wondering when the next cyber threat's going to impact our environment and how will we respond.
My interpretation of crazy talk like this is as follows. No matter what happens and does not happen in the real world in terms of cyber-physical attacks, the ICS security community and the media have chosen to turn even the most unsuspicious tiny molehill into a mountain of epic proportions. We are always only an inch away from cyber Armageddon. Let me show what I mean by picking a random example. Security Week recently reported, hacktivist attacks show ease of hacking industrial control systems. The subline reads, hacktivists might not know a lot about industrial control systems, but they are well aware of the potential implications of these devices getting compromised. The picture in the article shows a power plant in Bangladesh. Did those hacktivists bring down that power plant, maybe even very easily, as the headline suggests? Not quite. In case you didn't know, most readers only read headlines and sublines. For those who bothered to continue reading, they would have learned that the impacted system was a hotel swimming pool, for which HMI exposure on the internet was detected by Shodan. The core problem is this type of reporting, as well as the typical marketing collateral of ICS security vendors, applies the wrong lens on reality. Not just is reality distorted, it is also pictured in a way that is not useful. Trying to instill fear by getting people to imagine what could have happened isn't helpful in any pragmatic sense, particularly if those people eventually figure out that they have been scammed. For those who are interested in solving a problem, it doesn't do much good to make the problem appear far worse than it actually is. The right lens you should apply is to ask, what would have been necessary to prevent this attack? And the answer is usually surprisingly trivial. In the case of our hotel swimming pool, the answer would simply have been, make sure that your HMI isn't exposed to the internet and visible on Shodan. Talking about remote access, remember that water system hack in Oldsmar, Florida last year? Made possible by insecure remote access. The 2015 cyber attack on Ukraine that I referred to earlier, made possible by insecure remote access. Triconex attack, made possible by a DMZ that wasn't. I could go on, but you get the point. Secure remote access should be one of your top priorities. Is it difficult to achieve? Absolutely not. Contract an OT security consultancy worth their salt and have them identify and check your remote access links. Chances are that some of them lack two-factor authentication or other security means. Easy to fix. Which brings us to a more general observation. In the OT space, protecting against the most likely attacks isn't rocket science. Think about corporate ransomware. Your major risk is not cyber war or a sophisticated cyber-physical attack. Your major risk as an OT asset owner is becoming an accidental victim of opportunistic ransomware. Why? Because your typical OT environment is infested with vulnerable Windows installations to the extent where IT security professionals would or should lose their sleep if they only had any idea of what's going on in OT. You must dramatically reduce vulnerabilities on Windows systems because that is the attack vector for pretty much every single ransomware attack. And that brings us to the elephant in the room. It's not really about your patching strategy, where you are happy if you can patch most of your Windows boxes once per year. Oops. I think I just gave away the best kept secret in OT security. Damn. Do you have any idea of the number of Windows 7 boxes that your organization is still running, not to mention XP? Guess what? Most people don't. In this regard, any calls for patching are obviously misplaced because you cannot patch an operating system for which patches are no longer available. You have to either upgrade those systems, protect them by compensating network security controls, or install application whitelisting. Get rid of your Windows 7 and older, and your security posture will improve dramatically. Do you know what else is dragging hundreds of vulnerabilities with them? I can tell you from experience, as we have hard data on this. Outdated web browsers, including not just Edge but Chrome as well. And then the various Adobe products, from Adobe Reader to Flash Player, a product that should simply be forbidden in any OT environment. Update your web browsers and remove those Flash players and see your security posture skyrocket. My bottom line is this: contrary to what you may think when listening to the daily chatter about OT security risk, the important stuff is not the newest vulnerability that was discovered yesterday or the latest zero-day exploit. Your OT cyber risk is largely determined by trivial vulnerabilities that are hidden in your OT infrastructure for years. Identifying and fixing these vulnerabilities is doable, and it will make a huge difference for your OT security game. Here's my laundry list for all those who are willing to make that difference. Fix your insecure remote access, outdated operating systems, outdated web browsers, and hopelessly vulnerable Windows applications such as Adobe Flash. Good luck!